the actual properties of gravity as described by modern physicists, it is in by all accounts the source of everything. People narrow it down to one specific trait of holding us to the ground. There's so much more to this idea that it's really senseless. It even applies to on an atomic level. Because of this one source of energy, everything is created. I mean, it would take a basic understanding of the transfer of energy. For example, kinetic energy released from a crankshaft in your car turns a belt that electricity is generated from your alternator. The idea is that energy can't be created or destroyed, and that it can pretty much any form of energy can be translated to another form. And for a long time, the idea was that matter and energy were two separate entities. They had nothing to do with each other than the way that energy acts upon physical substance. But now we know that's not the case, that energy is created or released by matter on an atomic level, and it's actually how atoms are constructed. They are pretty much, in essence, pure energy themselves. What actually happens is in an atom, you have protons and neutrons, and we'll just put a P on a few of them and an N on a couple more. These neutrons are just, in essence, they're neutral. They have pretty much no defining property. The protons, however, have what they call a positive charge, and they are not necessarily on that atomic nuclei level describing when they say static. Usually that refers to electricity. The static charge on the electrons, however, are based on electricity, because in a sense, or in essence, the electrons are a negative form of, which, I mean, all electric charge, all static charge is a negative pulling attraction. This is why they orbit around a proton, and on this atomic level they do it so fast, so much faster than, I mean, you can apply the idea to Mercury. Makes a circle around the sun, I think in like 81 days, and Pluto in ever so many Earth years. Once you get down to this small scale, they have to spin a lot faster because they're a lot closer. And what would actually happen if the electrons didn't orbit? The centrifugal force that keeps them from bonding with the proton. I believe this is actually how a neutron is created. The electron loses orbit and slowly gets more and more attracted to a proton until they merge, and then you have, in essence, a neutron. Well, the point of what I'm getting at here is that these forms of energy, and no one, I doubt, will disagree that an electron is a form of energy. It actually rotates so fast around this nucleus until you have I guess for lack of a better term, a force field. So you have a physical hard surface. Because of this, they actually move so fast that they create a solid orb around this, and then, of course, you bind all these together and you get a molecule like water or whatever, and then from there that gravity affects it on a larger scale of binding more of these molecules together until you actually get a amount that you can see on a macroscopic level of water. The reason why that I source everything to it is because of gravity. Well, let's just go to the common belief that all energy comes from the sun, and in a sense it does. Even if you believe that, well, the Earth is ever so many billion years old and the sun is also, so there was energy that originated here. Well, in that idea that everything was a gas at one time in the entire Milky Way galaxy. Let's just go to the solar system. All of that gas was originally one mass. So it doesn't matter how you look at it. All energy came from the sun, and it still does to this day. Most of the energy we use comes from the sun. Even if you want to go to something as simple as the gasoline in your car. Well, the gasoline in your car started out as the actual energy within a dinosaur that died. Where did it come from? Well, they ate either other dinosaurs or animals that ate plants. Where did their energy come from? Photosynthesis. Where does that come from? The sun. In a sense, the sun. But then you look at the sun and you say, well, where does its energy come from? It's on an atomic level of hydrogen fusion, which is caused by the gravity of the sun. Everything comes from gravity. You see, in this idea and pattern over here. So no matter how you want to look at it, everything definitely comes from this one ultimate source. So one of the traits I want to put up here is that it is the ultimate source of everything. Everything you feel, see, whatever anything does, it all comes from this ultimate source. And the other idea is that it has always existed and will always exist. Now, it's hard for some people to conceive the idea of certain things never having a beginning, never having an end, but when you discuss the laws of gravity, it's easily conceivable then all of a sudden to a human mind that this is the case. Yeah, I can see how gravity always was there, because how would anything happen if that isn't the case? So definitely the ultimate source of everything always existed and always will exist. Let's see, another trait. Source of everything has always existed. What else am I looking for here? There's another key element. Well, just between these two, I won't even label the other. It's obvious. It's what everything came from. I mean, it's the beginning of everything. Then you have this other idea on the other side that I won't label yet, but it also, same thing. I mean, it's the ultimate source of everything, always existed and always will exist. What are we talking about here? Well, it does carry a lot of similarities with another idea, and that is the idea of creationism. In short, we're saying the particular traits of God, and that is that He is the ultimate source of everything. He created everything, and always exists and always will exist. Here's another one that I want to put on the gravity side that I'll also carry over, is that it is the ultimate attraction between all objects. And you know what? Before I carry it over here, I want to tell you why. So, here we have this idea and this idea. And boy, do they have a lot of similarities. Matter of fact, I'll challenge you to find more than one difference in these ideas. So, in the sense that gravity is the ultimate attraction between all objects, yeah, I mean, it honestly is. Even in the sense of energy, if you follow along with the idea of what a black hole is, it attracts even light, and a light photon is essentially thermal energy. So, everything is a great pulling force. Well, on this side, say you follow, it really doesn't matter which major religion you follow. They all claim to be followers of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and they come from pretty much the same source material, whether it's Quran or Torah or the Bible. It makes no difference. So I'll just make a simple quote from the Bible. I need to actually do that specifically from my Bible. That way I can avoid any idea of hypocrisy. Oh, let's see here. What I have here is a King James, because I believe it contains the closest translation of what was actually written, because it's been translated less, so it's diluted less. And I have here a Strong's Concordance, exhaustive concordance, which even gives the original Hebrew and Greek meanings of the word. If you have one yourself, you may want to follow along, but what it actually states in 1 John, and I'm pretty sure about this, is 1 John chapter 4, verses 8. It says simply, he that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. Now, so in 1 John chapter 4, verse 8, God is love. Well, now, there's a lot of different forms of love. It's expressed so many different ways. I mean, you don't love your children the same way you love your friends. You don't love your mom the same way you love your wife. There's a big difference there. So what kind of love are we talking about? Well, I would think that in the idea that's displayed over here on this side, that it would be an ultimate non-discriminatory source of that idea of love, which would be a great attraction, meaning a pulling force. And this is why I correlate these two descriptions as being the same thing. At this point, if you follow along, you're probably either intrigued or offended, and you may want to know, well, what are you trying to say here? You're trying to say God is gravity? Well, what I'm trying to say is people have misconceived the ideas derived from what they can see. And they assume that what they can see, and this is where I put a divide, this is the actual disagreement between these two sides. They actually believe the same thing, is what I'm getting to, that we come from an ultimate source that has all of these traits. Both sides believe the same thing. The only difference is whether or not you believe that this entity has consciousness. That's the disagreement. That's where the debate should be held. It's stupid to assume that someone's ignorant based on the fact that they apply theology rather than provable physics. Here's the questionable part about this. This is where I see hypocrisy. You cannot prove gravity. They call it the laws of gravity. This is ridiculous. It is not necessarily widely accepted based on facts and on evidence. They can't explain to you how gravity works. No physicist can. Nobody can. No one knows how this exists. They don't know how it works at all. They have no clue. They are basically operating on the same thing. The only difference is whether or not you believe this ultimate source has consciousness and actually intended to do what it did. That's the disagreement. That's the argument. So to basically reveal to you what the whole video was about was to address a common misconception on both sides. Both of these sides have had no idea what they're talking about forever, since the ideas both began. One complements the other, and one of us is terribly wrong based on only one idea. And that is whether or not this has consciousness. In essence, you can call yourself an agnostic or a Christian or whatever religion, or an atheist that bases his knowledge solely on scientific fact. But either way, either one of these people can show their ignorance by not knowing anything about the other. Of course, it's my belief. I mean, you know, I wouldn't even begin to go into depth on this or have a Bible unless I leaned this way. And the idea, well, why would you say you lean this way? And then people, if they comment on this video, it'll be something like, yeah, well, of course, there's no chance this could have happened. Here's where I disagree with you. I believe that this entity created what they call free will. And this has been discussed as the, I can't remember the title exactly, the free will theory, or I don't know. It's to where it's the idea that creationists created to explain why there's evil. I believe they were on the right track, they just didn't finish. Because then there's questions pointed out to, well, why are all of these instances put in place by a great creator that would actually cause us to question his existence? I would say that's the genius in his design. You can either have free will or none, and the only way to have it is to have perfect free will, and that is to the extent of whether or not to believe that this exists. Okay. What I'm saying in all in all, the point I'm getting to is, by now you would have known by the title of the video, everybody believes the same thing up to this one point, this divide that I've described here. Everybody believes exactly the same thing. Now, you may assume that because I've stated that I lean towards this, I believe the creationist theory, that I would be bashing. I got to tell you the exact opposite is true, because by the title of the video, I can almost guarantee there'll be very few creationists that'll even click on it, because they'll be so offended that I am putting these two ideas in a largely absorbent Venn diagram. The idea between both parties, it doesn't matter which side you stand on, is that they're completely separate in every way. They're exact opposites. That is not the case. That is so far from the case. This is 99% of this, and back and forth. Yeah. The purpose of what I'm trying to accomplish is a better debate